All right. Hey, welcome to Unity. Every week we are here to guide you through the path of not just personal development, but entrepreneurship by bringing on different speakers that we are actually featuring at our conference that we'll be doing next year. And the idea of our event, which is called Unity, which Sandy, myself, and Ava, who's on this call, put together, is all around not just having you come to an incredible event and meeting amazing mentors, but also leaving with a business, leaving with something that works. Because most of the events you go to, you're all excited.
Yes.
You leave
super excited.
and you feel like, what do I do now? Right? Guide through the path. So we're going to do that for you. And there'll be more information over at asktheory.com/unity. By the way, I want to specify something about community and how important community is. Yesterday, we did this incredible event here called Presentation 100%. Sandy and I put this together all around the idea of owning the stage, getting up and having a conversation with an audience, not giving a speech, but a conversation, because having that authentic connection with an audience is really about conversation, not a speech. And I talked to a bunch of the people that attended the event. You're going to like hearing this. They go, we love the event, but we love the people even more.
Aww.
Now, this is important because I think the idea of community is what really guides us to a path of success. And we're trying to build a community. Well, let me rephrase it. We are building a community through unity. And the community is your community. So you can actually share ideas and insights. So as we build this and we gather together, remember, we're here to help you really meet incredible people, to help you find greater success in what you're doing. And again, that made me feel good because, again, when you're working together with people you respect and admire, you work more effectively and more efficiently.
That's true.
Right?
And you have more fun. And isn't life about having fun? I'm tired of doing boring stuff that you have to do, and you're just like, this sucks. So why not make every moment fun? And who you work with, if that's fun, that just makes it better. And as you can see, it's contagious.
Yeah, it is. But how many times do we all complain about our past jobs that we hated? Mm-hmm. And we never said, oh, I hated that job, but I did so much in that job. I was so productive. You never said that. No, you didn't.
Yeah.
You were really productive in a job.
I was super productive, and I hated the job. That's why I left after a few months.
What job?
Working for the devil. I worked for the devil. Just
yeah, you were productive. You just didn't like the job. But most of the times, if you love the job and love the people, you're incredibly productive and you do amazing things. So we want to make sure that you're around great people. And as you watch the people we interview and hang out with, that's our social circle. And actually, I think our first guest is ready to go. I see him right there. And as I say social circle, this is a great example.
There he is.
Dr. Michael Breus, he has multiple books out. He's been on thousands of hours of TV shows around the world. Actually, I was watching him one time on a show, I think it was in Australia, where he was sleeping on a bed in a glass environment outside on the street. Do you know what I'm talking about, Michael?
Yeah, actually it was in Australia, and I was in a glass box on a barge in the middle of the Sydney Harbor, doing a PR stunt to bring some attention to sleep, and a company that I work with, Princess Cruise Lines, their new focus on sleep. So I've done some pretty crazy stuff out there for sure.
Yeah, you absolutely have. So I've known Michael for, I don't know, maybe about 10 years-ish. He is, no, actually 7 years. I met him through Jim Quick, who was on our first call. And Jim goes, you got to meet this guy. You want to know the authority on really being awake in a positive way. He's the sleep doctor, but he really makes you have an effective awake experience. And you met Michael I think last year you met him, and he's become one of your favorite people.
Oh, absolutely. And he's just so handsome. Yeah. I can't wait for him to take photos with me, right?
Sure.
Okay. So right behind you, we noticed the word "The Doctors," as in the TV show. Yeah. You've appeared on that show, yes?
Yeah. Actually, they just asked me to appear on Friday. I'm going to be next Friday. I'm going to be talking about sexsomnia, believe it or not.
What is sexsomnia?
Yeah, what
So
is
this,
that?
so this is going to sound like a funny thing, but the truth of the matter is it's actually a super serious thing that's kind of uncool. There are people who actually have full on sexual intercourse completely asleep. And so I know it sounds funny, but here's where it's not funny is when the partner who's awake is not willing, it turns into a bad situation.
Right.
Ooh,
Exactly.
yeah.
It is rape. And there's actually several court cases about it. So I'm going to be going on talking about signs and symptoms if you think you might have something like this going on and the different treatments that are available for it. To be fair, it's pretty rare and it has a tendency to only happen in men, which is another interesting factor as well. And alcohol in many cases is involved. So
I
it's
could make
just one.
so many jokes right now, but I'm ashamed.
I know. But if you've ever talked to somebody who's been on the victim side of it, it's not a good situation.
It's
No,
not.
I'm talking about it only happens to men part.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I know. That's kind of ironic, right?
Yeah. I have it during the day.
Right. So, but yeah, I do a lot of television work. I've been on The Doctors many times. I've been on the Today Show 7 times this year. So yeah, it's kind of crazy. And apologies for my attire. I'm after this, I'm going for my workout. I have what's called a late chronotype. I'm a night owl. And so I can't work out at 6 o'clock in the morning. It just does not work for me. So I don't work out until usually around 10:30 each day.
Well, that's, I think, where we want to start. This whole idea of being awake is super important because that's when we're most productive, but
Right.
sleep is the key. And most people may not know that there is a fixed, perfect time for
Right.
different people when they should be sleeping. And you call them chronotypes. How do we analyze and understand that?
Sure. So chronotypes are, it's a term that people might not have heard before, but the truth of the matter is everybody knows the concept. If you've ever been called an early bird or a night owl, or you know somebody that has, those are chronotypes. My contribution is, we've known about chronotypes now since the 70s. And there's always been 3. There's been the early bird, there's been the night owl, and then there's been somebody in the middle that people kind of have a tendency to call a hummingbird. I'm not really sure where this whole bird vernacular came from because I'm a mammal and I'm not a bird. So I'm not really that thrilled with that as an idea. My contribution to the literature is I added a 4th chronotype, which is an insomniac. Now, what's interesting about this is these are actually genetically predetermined bedtimes and wake up times. And one of the things that I want to impart to all of the listeners and the viewers on the Unity call today is if you go to bed at the right time for your body, you will actually not need nearly as much sleep, and the quality of sleep that you get is significantly higher. As an example, for me, for years, I tried to do the let's wake up at 6 a.m. thing or 5 a.m. and ride hard and blah, blah, blah. It sucked, okay? And I'll tell you exactly why it sucked. I'm a night owl. I don't go to bed before midnight ever. And so here's the science behind this is if I wake up at 5 a.m., that doesn't mean that the melatonin faucet in my brain turns off. Because I'm a night owl, that melatonin faucet continues to go till about 7:30, 8 o'clock in the morning. That's why when I wake up at 5, I feel like crap because my brain doesn't want to be up. That's genetic, guys. So if anybody out there has tried this 5 a.m. club and failed, I've got a news flash for you. Only about 40% of the entire world population could even consider doing it, and only about 15% can do it successfully. So don't feel like you failed because you can't wake up at 5 a.m. and exercise. There's nothing wrong with understanding your chronotype. Now, the question that you asked me, Ken, was where can we learn more about this? How can we understand what our chronotype is? Here's the good news. I created a quiz, okay? If you go to chronoquiz.com, you will learn that you can take a quiz. It takes maybe 2 minutes, and you will learn about famous chronotypes that are similar to yours, what your bedtime should be, your wake up time should be. It's all a free report. You take the quiz, you sign up, you get all the cool information. But to be fair, I wrote an entire book about this. And where the book comes in, which I think is more valuable than just learning what your chronotype is is in the book, I took 50 different activities that we do during the day, and I showed people the perfect time of day to do them based on their natural hormone circadian rhythms, right? So here's what's interesting. So let's say, Sandy, that you're an early bird and Ken, you're a night owl, or is that
Wait,
the opposite?
I'm a bear, you've decided.
Oh, you're a bear? And Ken,
Yeah,
what are you?
I took the test and it came out that I'm a bear.
Bears are the best, actually.
Yeah,
Kenny,
and
what are
it was
you?
so cool like that. We like
Whoa.
berries.
What's a bear difference between a bear? Go ahead, go for it.
Did you take the quiz, Ken?
I forget. I've actually changed because remember, I used to need 3 hours of sleep. I'm not like that anymore.
I want to say that you took the quiz, and I think you're an early bird.
Oh, I love the morning.
Oh, he's an early bird, all right.
Okay, so this is where it gets really interesting, okay? Is, Ken, your body naturally wants to wake up at a time that Sandy's body does not want to wake up at.
Oh my gosh, it makes
Right?
so much sense.
Yeah, I like. If I could get up at 4:30 or 5:30 in the morning, I'd be happy.
Right. Okay. So let's talk through this real quickly. So instead of calling them early birds, what I actually call them are different mammals, because again, I'm a mammal, and that's certainly something that, you know, I respond better to. So early birds are replaced by lions. Okay. Now I chose lions for two distinct reasons. One is it's kind of cool to be a lion, like certainly cooler than being an early bird, right? But more importantly, lions actually have an early chrono rhythm. So lions actually, their first kill is usually before dawn. So that's when they kind of do that thing. Now bears are replace the hummingbirds in the middle. And to be fair, Sandy, being a bear is the best. And I'm going to tell you why. Most of society is a bear, right? 55% of people are in the middle. And
Wait,
our
you're
entire
saying that
society
I'm
was,
common?
yeah, no, it's good. No. It's better to be
like
common
a
in this.
special bear, like a golden bear.
No, but that's why stores open at 10 o'clock, okay, for bears.
Oh, that's
Here's
why
where
the
it gets
kids put
interesting.
me in the stores all the time.
No. Here's where it gets interesting is if you're a night owl like me, or what I call a wolf, right? It gets very difficult to have a relationship with a lion.
Oh, okay, got it.
Right? So here's the big question that everybody always wants to know. Well, Michael, if I'm a lion and my partner is a wolf, when are we intimate? Right? Like when does something like that occur? Because again, this is all based on real science, all based on hormones. So let's talk about, I mean, is that cool to talk about here?
Absolutely.
Okay, so let's talk about when's the best time to have sex, right? So it turns out that you need.
Yeah, but but this is interesting because you're like a 1 o'clock in the afternoon.
I don't know what you're talking about, Ken.
Yeah, you're 1 o'clock, and I'm like a
Early morning.
TMI,
Yeah.
Ken. TMI.
no. But
No.
people like this. People want to know.
This is good science, right? So here's where it gets really, really interesting, right? Is you need 5 hormones to have successful sex. You need estrogen, testosterone, and progesterone. Adrenaline and cortisol all need to be elevated. And you need melatonin, the sleep hormone, to be decreased, okay? 74% of people are intimate between 10:30 and 11:30 at night. What do you think their hormone profile looks like?
They're tired. Yeah,
Exactly. It's literally the opposite, right? Melatonin is high and all the other stuff you need is low. So that's number one, is giving people a hint as to when being intimate, they may be more successful at it. Here's hint number 2. What do most men wake up with in the morning?
Oh, morning wood.
Bad
Morning
breath.
wood. That's exactly
Bad
right.
breath.
So if that is not Mother Nature telling you when to use that thing, I don't know what is, right? So morning time or mid-afternoon makes a lot of sense for somebody who's an early bird with a bear, because that's the right time.
Why are you high-fiving me?
Okay, just want to make sure, you know.
So in the book, I actually created a matrix. So you can put your chronotype in one side, your partner's chronotype in the other side, and it gives you 2 times, one in the early morning and one in the later afternoons, so that people can experiment and give it a shot and see what happens. Number one, it's interesting and fun, and it gives you a little bit of a new, different experience, which is fun for couples anyway. But number 2, we've actually discovered that connection is actually better, both emotional connection as well as physical connection is actually better. People perform better having sex when they're not tired.
Heck yeah.
Bottom
Yeah.
line, right? And so this is the type of thing, this is the way you can change your life, understanding your chronotype. I teach people the best time to eat a cheeseburger, ask their boss for a raise. I mean, honestly, you name it. And what's fascinating is it all comes from these sleep chronotypes. So I encourage people to take the quiz. Thank you for putting it up there, chronoquiz.com. And it's really
but you
fascinating.
also look at eating because of this too, because you have a
Yes.
strange eat schedule. What's your eating schedule?
Well,
Yeah,
first of all,
so
how many pounds did you lose since you started following your chronotype?
Okay, so I do intermittent fasting, right? And that's something that's fairly popular. If people are interested in how intermittent fasting affects sleep, if you check out my blog, go to www.thesleepdoctor.com and you'll see, just click on blogs. I've got so many questions answered there. But one of my passions has become intermittent fasting. So I started this about 6 weeks ago and I've dropped almost 20 pounds in 6 or 7 weeks. And what's happened is so intermittent fasting, for people out there who may or may not know what that is, that's where you only eat for a subscribed period of time. It could be 8 hours during the day, it could be 6 hours during the day, but you choose a time and that's your quote feeding time. What I did to modify this is I did it based on my chronotype, right? So if I'm a night owl, I actually don't start eating until almost 6 o'clock at night. So yes. So when I was over at your house yesterday for the speakers conference, which by the way, if anybody wants to go to something really fucking cool, go to the speakers conference that I went to with these guys yesterday, because I'm a professional speaker and I learned a ton from people there and I felt like I contributed. So if people are out there and checking it out and want to really learn how to publicly speak, you should do that. But yesterday when I was at your house,
100%.com.
Go ahead.
Yes,
Sorry.
100%.com. Thank you. But what I did yesterday, if you're at your house, which you may not have noticed, is I didn't eat lunch. I had a cup of coffee, and I didn't start actually eating until after I left around 6:30 when I went to meet somebody for dinner. So I feed from about 6:30 till about 10:30 at night, and then I go to bed around 12:30.
Because you're a wolf.
Because I'm a wolf, exactly. So if you're a lion like you are, then you would actually do almost the opposite. Breakfast would turn out to be an important meal for you, and you would eat in the morning time, and then you would be basically done by like 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and you would basically not eat dinner.
You know, I could actually do that. I was just thinking, I was in India.
I know you can, because you got a chronotype.
Yeah, I was in India last year and I would have a gigantic breakfast and I didn't need to eat until the next day.
I don't know. I fed him at 6 o'clock in the morning and by like 5, he's like, I'm hungry.
No. But I would think about 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock is like let me eat the most. And it's true. If I have a good breakfast, I'm done.
Yeah.
And breakfast is the most fun.
But you never let me make you breakfast. And I make a darn good breakfast.
It's not enough. You know.
Well, we can work on this.
Yeah,
and also it depends upon what you eat, right? And so we know that there's some foods that give us more energy than others. And that's kind of an interesting area as well. When you look at food choices and energy level and sleep in particular, it's quite fascinating. Carbohydrates make us sleepy. What happens is there's a rise in serotonin levels, which is the calming hormone, right? And so when we eat cakes and cookies, things with sugar in them, things with super high carbohydrates in them, all of this causes a serotonin increase, which makes us feel better. This is why we call them comfort foods, is because we actually feel more comfortable physically because of this serotonin expression during the eating of these carbohydrates. So number one, if you're going to have breakfast, I hate to say this because I'm a Jewish guy myself, you got to avoid bagels, okay? Like bagels are carbohydrate bombs, right? And they slow you down. Bacon's good. Bacon's not a bad thing. I'm a fan of bacon. So when you're thinking through your breakfast choices, like if you had an omelet with avocado, that would be a perfect breakfast because you're going to get the protein from the eggs. If you're into animal protein, you've got the fat from the avocados. Maybe you throw in some healthy veggies like some broccoli or some spinach or some tomatoes. And all of a sudden, you've got a really healthy meal and it's great energy and it keeps you going, right? When you have pancakes and cereal and bagels and toast and all those things, people don't get it, but it really slows you down. It gives you a small boost of energy because of the sugar and then you're dead. And that's when you're grabbing coffee and grabbing a donut and doing all these things that are gaining weight.
Dr. Michael Breus is joining us. If you have a question or a comment or something you want to go to the Oracle himself, please drop it right side in the chat. And if you're watching this at a later date, which a lot of people do, realize that we get together for these live Thursday calls so you can interact with the guests. So make sure you're there. If you're watching us at a later date, be there at 8:30. That's PST time or 4:30 GMT time. So right now, Sandy, you are a midday person. I'm a morning person.
I'm a bear.
I get it.
Yes, you are.
I'm a dolphin.
Lion.
A
No,
lion.
you're a lion.
No,
Lion.
your favorite animal is a dolphin. See, all these animals are getting
A
kangaroos.
lot.
He's a lion.
So let's talk through it real quick. Lions replace early birds. Bears replace hummingbirds. Wolves replace night owls, and dolphins are insomniacs.
Oh, I used to be a dolphin.
Yes, you did.
Till he met me.
Yeah, it's true. I like laying in bed with you. Okay, that's a different story.
I changed his chrono type.
We sit there and look at, and is that possible, by the way? Is there a way you could flip chronotypes?
So it's an interesting question. And so what I found specifically with dolphin chronotypes or the insomnia chronotypes, if we work on them and we get them sleeping better, sometimes their true chronotype bubbles to the surface, which is exactly what I think happened with you.
Did you hear that, Ken?
You changed
I
it.
brought your true you out.
You did. Yeah.
So what I would argue is, so first of all, to be fair, you're happier now, Ken.
Yes.
And that has a lot to do with, he is. And that has a lot to do with also all of these other things that are kind of happening in your life. And I would honestly argue that Sandy is definitely a component.
Oh, well, 100%. There's no doubt about it.
Wait, I missed that. Sandy is definitely a what? You can say that again.
You're the
A
contributor.
component in his happiness. I mean, we all make ourselves happy, but at the end of the day, you know, it's fun to have somebody that we care about, you know, that's interested in us and our health to help us get through all of that. And so yes, you can change your chronotypes.
I'm not arguing. I 100% agree. Hey,
Well,
let's
also wait, there's another time that your chronotype will naturally change, and that's as we get older. So one of the things you'll notice is for a lot of people who are like 50, 55, 60, 65, they start going to bed earlier, right? The blue plate special, right, was 4:30 dinner, you know, at the local diner. And by the way, it was only old people, right? And so you're starting to think like, what's going on here? There's actually a natural circadian shift as we get older and makes our entire internal biological clock go earlier. So don't be surprised if something like that happens. As a night owl, I can tell you that this is starting to happen to me now. I'm 51 years old, and I'm starting to notice that historically, I just couldn't even get in bed before midnight. Now, 11:30, I'm starting to get tired, you know? So it's starting to kind of march its way a little backwards for me.
Could we just be upfront? There really isn't a specific amount of sleep people should get.
Absolutely correct. So 8 hours is a fucking myth, right? And people don't get it, right? It drives me crazy because if you go to bed am I not allowed to cuss? Is that a bad
No,
thing?
I'm laughing because I am very set on my 8 hours. If I don't get 8 hours, I feel like someone punched me.
That's a psychological thing.
No,
well, here's what it is. Here's what I would argue is there are some people that need 8 hours, but if you're sleeping based on your chronotype, here's what's going to happen is your entire sleep schedule will begin to shrink because your sleep becomes more efficient, right? And so for people out there who are efficiency people, like I'm down with efficiency. Like the more I can do in a particular period of time, the better off I am. And my energy level is something that I'm constantly looking at. And so being able to sleep based on your chronotype naturally gets us to do that, which is kind of cool. So when you ask, is 8 hours really the right amount for everybody? The answer is no way. I'm the sleep doctor and I sleep 6 hours and 15 minutes, you know? So like that's.
Is that your next call?
Yeah. So that's what happens quite a bit.
Yeah, we actually have like 2 minutes left with you, I think.
You've got as much time with me as you want.
So you said.
Did you hear that?
Yes, and I'm really loving this efficiency conversation. So efficiency is sleeping according to your chronotype. So you said there are 3 chronotypes, or are there more than 3?
There's 4.
There's 4. So what are the efficient sleep times for each chronotype? How many hours?
So here's the thing, is if people go and take the chrono quiz, they'll learn all of that based on their chronotype. And it's not like I can just say, hey, here's the time if you're this, if you're that, if you're that, because it can actually vary within that. And believe it or not, there are 2 different types of bears we're learning now. There's actually early bears and late bears. So it's hard to say, hey, this is when you do, but general guidelines, here's what we've got. If you're a lion like Ken is, you're probably thinking about going to bed closer to the 9:30, 10 o'clock range, and then getting up at 4:30, 5 o'clock range. If you're like Sandy and you're more of a bear, I would argue that you want to go to bed a little bit later. You're going to be going to bed around 10:30 or 11 and getting up around 6:30 or 7, maybe even as late as 7:30, depending upon what works for you. If you're a night owl like me, right? If you're a night owl like me, you're not going to go to bed until probably midnight or even later, and probably want to sleep till 7:30, 8 o'clock in the morning. Now, to be fair, the reason that I don't sleep that late is my body just won't let me. I haven't used an alarm in 15 years and I just wake up. Again, because my consistency of my schedule is the key secret here. If you can have a consistent wake up time, your total sleep time will begin to shrink and you just become more and more efficient. As a dolphin, it's a little bit more difficult because these are historically my insomnia patients. And so many of them won't go to bed until 12:30, 1 o'clock, and they have a tendency to wake up a little bit earlier and be pretty exhausted during the day. Yep. So that's why we try to work with them to get them sleeping a little bit better.
Okay, let's talk about a couple of cool hacks that you have. The
Sure.
first one is your Napa latte.
Napa latte.
Yeah.
So this is one of my favorite hacks to do, especially for my corporate, C-suite people or people who are just trying to get ahead. Let's say you didn't get a great night's sleep last night and you are dragging it. So here's what I have people do is around 2 o'clock in the afternoon, take a cup of black drip coffee. Now, why black and why drip? You don't want to add sugar and you don't want to add dairy to it because that could upset your stomach and not give you the results that you're looking for. The reason you want drip coffee is it turns out that drip coffee, and believe it or not, light roast is the best, has the highest amount of caffeine. So drip coffee has more caffeine than espresso, than cappuccino, and light roast turns out to have a higher level of caffeine than dark roast. Many people think it's the opposite, but it turns out not to be true. So have this, slug it. Throw in a couple of ice cubes just to cool it down and drink it as quickly as you can, like in 2 minutes type of thing. And then close your eyes immediately and take a 25-minute nap. You want to take it 25 minutes or less, and here's why. If you go longer than that, your body goes into a deeper stage of sleep, and then you really feel like crap. I mean, I don't know if anybody out there's ever taken a nap and felt worse, not better. Mm-hmm. That's because you slept too long. And what's interesting about caffeine in particular is it fits perfectly into the receptor site in your brain to block the hormone that makes you feel sleepy called adenosine. So this is a super good pick-me-up that you can have in the middle of the day. And you can even do it with a 15-minute nap if you want.
And it will wake you up then in that 25 minutes, you're like awake and you're not tired.
Yeah, you're good for 4 hours, guaranteed.
Wow.
It's awesome.
So what do you think about those 5-hour awake type drinks, those highly caffeinated type shots?
So to be fair, I'm not a huge fan, and I'll tell you why. When I look at like my Napa latte, it's about 100 milligrams of caffeine. That's it. When you look at some of those energy drinks, you're talking about tremendous amounts of caffeine, 200, 300. And to be fair, many of them use an ingredient called guarana. Guarana is a very powerful stimulant, and it's not something that they have to actually list in terms of milligrams on the fact panel. They just put it in the ingredients. So you don't know how much of that stuff is in there, and that's the thing that's fueling you. And to be fair, we don't know what the half-life is on a lot of these things. And so what happens is that you take an energy shot at, let's say, 4 o'clock in the afternoon to help you make it through your day, you could be up all night long. Now, many people are probably sitting there saying, wait a second, I can fall asleep after I've had a cup of coffee or even an energy drink. While you might be able to fall asleep, the quality of that sleep is not going to be good because caffeine and guarana affect your ability to get into deep sleep. You might get some light, crappy sleep, but you're not going to get the deep, good stuff, which is stage 3 and 4, which helps with physical restoration. That's the thing that we really want to get when we're sleeping, at least in the beginning time. REM sleep helps us with mental restoration. So that way we can get both of them. But if you drink one of these energy drinks too late in the day, you're done.
Got it. So you're cool then with doing power naps.
Absolutely. I love power naps.
You love power naps?
Except for dolphins. If you're a dolphin or you've got problems with insomnia, napping is out because it will lower your sleep drive and it'll make it even more difficult for you to sleep at night.
I noticed that when I was a dolphin, if I took a nap, it actually did not help me at all.
Absolutely correct.
So does that mean working out follows a chronotype also?
It does. So doing your exercise at particular times, what you'll find, and it also depends on the exercise too, which is kind of fascinating. So doing cardio at certain times of day versus doing weightlifting at other times of day, you will actually find that you're better able to perform. This is the reason why I'm in my gear, because at 10:30 as a wolf, this is a good time for me to go and exercise. So around 10:30 Pacific, that's when I'm going to go for a run and work out with my trainer.
Yeah, I'm just saying to Sandy, she always says like 10 o'clock is the time you want to work out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And 9 to 10 is your sweet spot. I'll drag my butt there no matter what. Right. Last night I went at 10 o'clock after everything yesterday. Yeah. Michael, I went to the gym at 10 o'clock last night.
So I would have never recommended that you do that.
But in my mind, I have to get it. You know those rings on our Apple Watches? I got to fill, and I set mine up to 1,000 calories.
Oh my God.
So hey, Dr. Michael Breus is joining us. Do we have a question that's inside the chat?
Okay. For people who are brand new and busting the 8-hour myth, what's the best way to find out how many hours is a perfect fit for each individual?
So this is an experiment that I teach people how to do. So this is a good one. So most people have a socially determined wake up time, right? So, and what does that mean? That means the time I got to get up for work or get my kids ready or something like that, right? You take that. Now we know that the average sleep cycle is 90 minutes long. And we know that the average person has 5 cycles. So 5 times 90 is 450 minutes on average, which is 7.5 hours. So right there, we broke the 8-hour myth. I mean, the math doesn't even work, right? So, but here's what you do is to make the math simple, let's say that you normally wake up at 6:30, okay? If you count backwards 7.5 hours, which is 450 minutes, which is the calculation we just did, your bedtime becomes 11 o'clock. Go to bed at 11 and see if after 1 week you wake up without your alarm. If you do, guess what? You found your sweet spot when your body naturally wants to go to bed and when your body naturally wants to wake up. If you still need an alarm after a week, try going to bed a little bit earlier. Maybe you're like Sandy and you don't need 7.5, you need 8. Maybe if you go to bed at 11, you wake up at 5:30 and you say, holy crap, I don't want to be up at 5:30. So instead of going to bed at 11, you can go to bed at midnight. This is the experiment that you can run. It takes about 2 weeks, but most people can figure it out pretty quickly on their own, and it's very effective.
And how about the glasses that we see people wear? I know Jim Clark's got some, Dave Asprey does, and that's to cut down, and they put them on before they go to bed.
Correct.
To actually cut down on, I guess,
blue light.
Blue light.
Right. So what's interesting about all these phone calls? So, so what's interesting about blue light is we discovered about 9 or 10 years ago that there's a certain frequency in all the light spectrum. So even in the overhead lights that we have, or even on our bedside table lamps, within that spectrum, between 450 and 480 nanometers is a spectrum called cyan or blue light. What's interesting about that, not to get super technical, is when that particular frequency hits your eyeball, you have cells in your eyeball called melanopsin cells. And what happens is they turn off the melatonin faucet. Now that's great in the morning time when you wake up and you get sunlight and it helps turn that melatonin faucet off. But let me tell you something, man, if you're trying to get your high score on Candy Crush, or you're watching your last issue of, Game of Thrones on your iPad in the middle of the night and that light is hitting your face, dude, you can't sleep. So blue light blocking glasses solves the problem because you throw them on about 90 minutes before bed, and it works really well. Now, to be full disclosure, I have my own line of blue light blocking glasses. If you go to sleepdoctorglasses.com, you'll see mine. And the reason that I created my own, to be fair, is I didn't like the ones that were out there that much. Both of my kids like to play video games and they'll play them late at night. And so I was like, well, we got to figure this out. And so one night I turned off the router in my house. Okay. And all of a sudden, within 30 seconds, I heard, Dad, the internet's broken, right? And so I was like, oh, I think I know what's going on. Everybody come down here. And so they all showed up right in my office where the router is. And I said, this is the router and it's off. And I handed everybody a pair of glasses and I said, it doesn't go back on until you put these on. And they're like, come on, Dad, these look stupid. What are you saying? No, no, no. And so it took a little convincing because you know my kids. And the good news is now they actually wear them on their own. I mean, they take goofy pictures with them and post them on Instagram. They're like, look what my crazy sleep doctor dad made me do. But they really work. And also for people out there who have kids who are gamers, it reduces eye strain, these blue light blocking glasses do. So there's, kids are dealing with computers constantly nowadays. And so I'm really a big fan of having people say, look, here's what we need to do. Throw these glasses, because we're not going to change the behavior, right? Kids are not going to stop gaming. So throwing on these glasses can actually be pretty helpful.
So what are some other ways to be more efficient with your sleep overall?
So once again, go to Chrono Quiz and figure out when to sleep. That's going to be the biggest thing you can do. Number 2, check out this experiment that we did. But I have a small 5-step plan that I'd love to give to everybody before I take off today. Is that okay?
Yeah.
So step number 1 is to have one wake up time, right? So pick that wake up time. And by the way, that means the weekends too. I know that sucks, okay? I totally get it. But if you can keep a consistent wake up time, it's the single best thing you can do across the board for your sleep. So I wake up at roughly 6:17 every single morning. I can't tell you exactly why I do it that way. I open my eyes and the clock says either 6:13, 6:15, or 6:17. I can't figure out why. It's just how my body works, right? So keeping that consistent wake up time is very, very important. So step number 1 is one wake up time. Step number 2 is to stop caffeine by 2 p.m. Now, why would I do that? Caffeine has a half-life of between 6 and 8 hours, okay? So what people have to realize is if you stop by 2, giving yourself 8 hours, roughly the average bedtime in the United States is somewhere between 10 and 10:30. So that gives you at least half of it's out of your system, not being able to affect your sleep. Remember, you might still be able to fall asleep with caffeine on board, but the quality of that sleep is going to be suspect for sure. So step number 2 is to stop caffeine by 2 p.m. Step number 3 has to do with alcohol, right? There's a really big difference between going to sleep and passing out, okay? So we want people to go to sleep, not pass out. It takes the average human body 1 hour to digest one alcoholic beverage. So if, let's say, you two go out for dinner and you decide that you want to have a couple of glasses of wine at dinner, if you stop by 8 and give yourself 1 hour for each beverage, so not going to bed until 10, you're good to go. It's not a problem. It's not going to have a major effect on your sleep. You can enjoy your adult beverage with dinner and be just fine, right? So also, by the way, remember alcohol is a diuretic, makes you have to pee. So if you can, drink 1 glass of water for each alcoholic beverage. So if you have your 2 glasses of wine, have a glass of water between each one, and then make sure you go to the bathroom before bed, and you really should be in good shape. So step number 3 is to stop alcohol roughly 3 hours before bed. I chose 3 hours because some people might want 3 glasses of wine as opposed to 2. Step number 4 is exercise. The biggest way to improve the quality of your sleep is with daily exercise. Now, burning off 1,000 calories a day like what Ken is doing is a little bit on the extreme side. Not everybody needs to do that. You don't have to run a marathon to get the benefits of exercise for sleep. Roughly 20 minutes of cardio, assuming your doctor says it's okay to do about 3 to 5 times a week, is actually enough to start to see the sleep benefits from exercise. So step number 4, however, is to not exercise 4 hours before bed. Here's why. Exercise increases your core body temperature, and your core body temperature has to lower in order for your brain to release melatonin. So if you're exercising before bed, it's too high, it can't lower, no melatonin, no sleep. And step number 5 is when you wake up in the morning, give the sun a high five every morning by walking outside and getting 15 minutes of sunlight. Put your feet on the earth. If you can, put your feet on the earth and drink a bottle of water. So step number 1 is keep a consistent wake up time. Step number 2, stop caffeine by 2 p.m. Step number 3, stop alcohol 3 hours before bed. Step number 4, exercise daily. Stop exercise 4 hours before bed. And step number 5 is to give the sun a high five every morning by putting your feet on the ground, getting 15 minutes of sunlight, and drinking a little water.
I love it. I have one last question for you.
But then I have one.
Okay, we have 2 last questions for you. So every now and then, you got to pull that all-nighter. You got to stay up way later than you want to.
Yep.
What do you do to recover from that next day grogginess or that feeling of a hangover because you're so tired?
So here's the thing is, if you had to stay up, let's say till 2 o'clock in the morning, and your normal wake up time is 6:30, you still got to get up at 6:30. What you can do is take a Napa latte at 2 o'clock. That way you don't go past your caffeine limit and you get a little extra sleep in there. The good news is don't go to bed early the next night. This is what everybody tries to do. They say, oh crap, I only got 4.5 hours of sleep. I'm going to go to bed early. Here's where that doesn't work. Anybody out there ever had the situation where you're freaking exhausted? You get in bed and nothing happens, right? You're just staring at the ceiling. That's because your circadian rhythm isn't ready for you to get in bed, because you're not going to bed at the right time for your chronotype. So don't go to bed early, go to bed at your normal time, and your body will actually make up for that lost sleep. Now, to be fair, if you do an all-nighter 4 to 5 nights in a row, you're screwed. Like, your body can't make up for that kind of thing. So do me a favor, don't do that, okay? It's not a good idea. And now people do shit like that all the time. And here's the problem is that's when this level of sleep deprivation really starts to build for us personally, and we don't even notice it anymore. So there are lots of people out there who are running around sleep deprived, and their reaction time is off, their cognitive time is off, they're moody. All of these things happen. I mean, you know what it's like when you're not well slept? Think about somebody who only gets 4 hours of sleep a night all week long. They're going to
Well, if you're driving a vehicle and you're exhausted and you get in a car accident, it
bad
counts
idea.
the same as driving under the influence of alcohol.
That is correct. So Maggie's Law, which was a law that was passed in New Jersey, states that exactly, is if you fall asleep and hurt somebody in a car accident having fallen asleep at the wheel, it's the same as vehicular homicide. So,
okay, so question for you then. If you are doing that, so you didn't sleep the night before, and then the next day you did go to bed extra early because you felt like you needed to recover, and then you have that 8 to 10 hours of sleep and you still feel exhausted the next day, what is that?
So,
and how do you fix it?
So that is sleeping at the wrong time, 100%. If you didn't go to bed early, so the next night, go to bed at your normal time. Don't take any naps. Follow the schedule. Our body craves consistency, right? The more consistent we are, the better our body functions in almost every way. That includes the time that you eat. That includes what you eat. That's the time you go to bed and the time you exercise. If you can keep all of those things consistent, your body will function better.
Okay, my turn.
Yep.
At 12 today, you have a trainer coming up.
Yes.
Okay, so you have a trainer that really helps you work out more effectively and efficiently. You are insanely intelligent in this space. How can you go into a corporate space or coach people to be more effective while they're awake? Because I'm assuming what you do as a superhero in this space is you help people become the better of what they are.
Correct.
How do they hire you? What kind of results do you bring in? What's the idea of bringing Super Doctor in?
So I have several specialized programs for people who want to optimize their sleep. So I have an online program. I have an online program where you can also get consulting with me. And then sometimes people will actually hire me straight up to work with, for example, their entire C-suite or them as an executive. And what that entails is, so number one, we create a personalized sleep schedule for each individual based on their genetics. So I can actually take your 23andMe data or your Ancestry.com data or send you a kit, and I can actually look at 74 different sleep markers that we know genetically are out there, and I can predict with a reasonable amount of accuracy what's going to happen for you. We can be, and remember, it's not conclusive. Genetic testing is not conclusive. It's predictive, right? So we know that there's a 35% chance, for example, like Ken, you're a good example. Do you mind if I share some of your data?
Absolutely.
So Ken did this with me, and we discovered that he has a 30 to 35% chance of having sleep apnea in the future, right? Now, if you look at him, he doesn't look like a type of guy that has sleep apnea. Usually those people have thick necks, they're a little bit heavier set, things like that. So one of the things that we're doing with Ken is we have him measure his neck about every 6 months. A significant marker for sleep apnea is anybody who has a neck over 17.5 inches has an 84% chance of having sleep apnea. So by looking at your genetics and keeping a mindful eye on what's going on with your neck size, we can prevent the inevitable, right? That's the secret sauce that kind of goes on when people work with me. We also do things like jet lag management. So I have an entire protocol. So I've got CEO, like as an example, I work with an entertainer and he does 200 shows a year and they're in different locations every single night. Okay. And it's not like it's a location where you're just driving up the street. Like he has to get in an airplane and go someplace new, literally almost every day. And so I'm constantly managing his jet lag and his sleepiness because he's a performer. And he's an evening performer, so he doesn't even go on stage until 11 o'clock at night. So he plays until like 3 o'clock in the morning, then has to go to the airport, get on an airplane, and go somewhere. So
by the way, I got to really make sure people understand this. So when we went to South Africa a couple of months ago, one of the people that went with us is Shaheen Shen, who you know quite well, and he followed your program to a T. And he had 0 jet lag, and we were on the other side of the world, and he said, hey, I'm fine. And when he came back, he did the same thing. No jet lag. He was so effective and efficient. So it works.
Yeah.
Your jet lag management system is real.
Absolutely. Like the proof is in the pudding on that one for sure. We also create pre-bed routines for people, specific pre-bed routines and wake-up routines. So how you start your day affects your entire day. Right? The first 20 to 30 minutes of your day will set the tone for your entire 24 hours. So what I'm constantly doing with people is I'm doing specific stretching, breath work, hydration, looking at meal consumption, timing of meals. So there's an entire science behind a morning routine. And I also do that for the evening. And then finally, what we do is we do a bedroom makeover. So I show up or you inventory what's in your bedroom and we go through it all. How old is your mattress? How old are your pillows? How supportive are they? What kind of sheets do you have? Are they moisture wicking? Do they really allow for better airflow? Does one person sleep hot and the other person sleep cold? So there's a lot of different factors that go into this. And to be fair, if people out there were interested in the online course, this is absolutely positively something that you can learn online. Many people like to take the online course and then do 1 or 2 consults with me to get really personalized on that. So that's sometimes what I do. And then sometimes people just say, Michael, I don't want to learn anything online. I want you to just fix it all. And I do that too.
You think good?
Yeah, one last question. You're telling us so much good stuff. I have all these questions. They just keep pouring out. Okay, what about light in the room at night? I heard that if you even have light on your leg, it will like wake you up or something.
So the study that you're referring to was a study done in Science about 10 years ago, and they took a light and they put it behind the person's knee. So sort of in that back sort of section of their knee, and they were actually able to change people's circadian rhythms by doing that. Now, now the first question is, why did they choose back of the knee? So there are some photoreceptors that we have in our skin and the lighter parts of our skin, and that happens to be an area that has several of them. The study was flawed because in certain ways, so I don't worry about that kind of light per se, but to be fair, there are a lot bigger problems that somebody might have for going to sleep than if the VCR, although I don't think people even have VCRs anymore, has a little blue light blinking type of thing, or there's a little clock, that you can see in the middle of the night. Like, people need to relax about that. I'm talking about like if you got your iPad on and you're trying to get your high score on Candy Crush, right? That's bad.
Is Candy Crush still even around?
I don't know. I've never actually played Candy Crush.
What? You've never heard of Candy Crush?
Oh no, but I don't think anyone plays anymore.
I've never played
Really?
it.
TikTok. Everyone's doing TikTok.
Oh yeah. Oh, those TikTok videos.
I'm totally addicted to TikTok. Like I watch it all the time. But you know what my favorite thing is?
Okay, true fact. Every time I see a cop, I show them TikTok.
You do.
And I show them how they need to be on TikTok because there's so many cops right now with millions of followers on TikTok. And the cops are like, what precinct are they with?
I didn't know that.
Okay.
You know what I like? I like they do like really cool BMX stunts and skateboard stunts, and they do this thing with ping pong balls. That's really cool.
Okay, stop. Hey, we're really excited. Once we get the new date for Unity, which will be happening in 2020, Dr. Michael Breus is one of the mentors that will be there. You don't want to miss that. How many books do you have?
I have 3 books, and I'm working on a 4th. Right.
And people want to find out more about all these things. Where do they go?
thesleepdoctor.com.
Go to the gym, sweat, and
I will.
stop that caffeine before 2. Dr. Michael Breus, thank you so much for sharing time with us.
Always. I love you guys. It's my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Love them too.
Thank
All right,
you.
there you go. So that just gives you an idea of the mentor level that we have on a regular basis for you. And I do want to talk about that since it's ironic that he is coaching us, but I want to talk about coaching itself and why it's important. You have a trainer that comes here at the house.
Yes.
And that trainer is going to get you to work out and kick butt, right?
Yes.
Okay, that's a physical trainer. And by the way, he's really, really good. His name's Blake, and he comes to the house, and you and Nikolai, my son, train. You guys work out really hard. That is for your body. Reason why you need coaching, and I hate this term of personal development coaching. I'm just telling you. Because I realize when I listen to you coach people, you actually get involved with what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
Their goal setting, you check up on them, you push them a little more than they know they can go. But you're there to always check up on them.
Yes.
So it's not about just, hey, this is what you should do and this is how you should do it, and then you step back. You're literally through that process with them.
Yeah.
So bringing in a coach is about not just suggesting something, but literally pulling them or pushing them to get to that point.
Well, if you're going to spend the money on the coach, you want to make sure that you're getting the results. And let's face it, sometimes we don't do the things that we know we're supposed to do. If we did, we wouldn't need coaches. So not only do they introduce new ideas and things for us to do, they keep us accountable.
Right. So I need you to understand that there's different types of personal and business coaching, okay? Where Sandy is great is if you're trying to say, hey, I know that I'm at this job, I'm making, let's just use a number, $100,000, I should be making $250,000, okay? Sandy is that, let's get you that 100% growth. Let's find that new spot. By the way, let's also identify who you are today, because things may have changed. The person that you are when you graduated college and that person who you were when you were 25 and had your first kid, or that person you were when you were 30 and you got married, but now you're 40 or 50, things have changed. Not just the way you are, but the way you show yourself off. That is where Sandy is great. She can identify where you're at and where you should be, okay? I'm the one that says, all right, once you have blasted off and you're making your 200 or your 250, let me help you find the 2 million. Mm-hmm. There's that 2 million that's sitting up there, but you have to go through the Sandy space because you have to have your proper base. You have to have that proper platform, because once you want to go up here, you can't fall through this down here.
Yeah, the problem we see often are people want to work with Ken and they want to be up here, but they haven't put their foundation together.
So true.
And then he has to send them back down the ladder to fix some of the foundational things. And that's where we have people like Dr. Michael Breus come in here and give us amazing foundation information that's really going to change the way that we operate and function on an efficiency level. Because if you're not efficient, you can't go up here.
And this is important, everyone, because if you want to run a marathon, you can't just start right away and say, I'm going to run the marathon. You got to train. You have to have the health to do that. Sandy is here to get you to make sure you have the base. Okay, so when you are hiring a coach, when you're hiring someone to actually help you get to that next level, make sure you're hiring or bringing in the right type of coach. Because I see too many people saying, I'm going to spend the $25,000 a month, by the way, to be at the $2 to $5 million level, and they're not there. It's a waste of money. Make sure when you're bringing in the right people, they're the ones that are here where they're giving you the foundation. Sandy is all about foundation. Okay, and this is so important because even yesterday, someone comes up to me and they go, all right, Ken, I want to make $5 million a year. I go, great. And they started telling me what they're doing. I go, you got to bring Sandy in. Sandy's the one that's going to allow you to actually make the $5 to $10 million. You still have to have the base. You have the base.
No, yeah,
but
it happens.
But you understand what I'm saying, right?
Yeah.
This is why I think most people, when they say, oh, I'm going to go spend all this money to go see Tony Robbins, or I'm going to be in that platinum circle, not realizing they don't have the base before to go to that next level. And how much is a Tony Robbins platinum circle?
Last I checked, I think it started at 85,000. That was even 2 years ago. I don't even. It might be
it's
different.
over 100,000 now.
No, I said started.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean you actually get anything.
Yeah, and it doesn't mean you're going to find success with that either.
Yeah.
Okay, and you don't join a Tony Robbins for the network because they're all talking to one another.
Yeah.
So what I would really like a lot of you to do as you watch this course, and by the way, please register. I noticed that a lot of people, when we started this and we didn't have people register, there's tons of people on the call.
Mm-hmm.
But now people are trickling in after it's posted. You want to be part of the live conversation because we can see your questions and your ideas and we want to contribute to you. Register over at asktheory.com so you can get alerts on who's going to be part of the calls and you can be part of what's happening. And I'm going to give you a bonus. We're going to be doing some of these at a different time during the day where it's literally fully interactivity amongst us. So it's going to be Sandy and I with you, no guests. So you want to register to be part of that, okay? So this is what I'm going to suggest is this. It's time for you, especially coming in the new year, to know that you are getting your foundation, and it might take you a year with that foundation so you can go to that next level, literally to the outer space side. But you can't get to outer space until you have the right propulsion, the right rockets to blast off. Bring in Sandy. And then once you're past that, it's time to bring Ken in. We both operate together to help you see that next level. But you have to start. And then once you're past that, because I got to tell you, I hear her coach people. I get excited listening because it's like, oh my gosh, they're doing, I love it.
I get excited coaching.
You love it.
I know. You see my little dance afterwards.
Well, no, but because I feel like every time they achieve something that seemed to be almost impossible for them, you feel like you did it with them.
Yeah, absolutely.
So people, please be part of what we're doing with Unity. It's not about just these calls. It's about a change in your lifestyle, and it's about seeing what you should be. And I'm excited about that. By the way, how do you do it then? How do you find a coach for yourself?
Oh, I've had quite a few coaches.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
which ones worked?
I've taken different programs. I did Tony Robbins,
Brendon Burchard,
his platinum program, which was very expensive. I did Brendon Burchard's master program, which was incredibly expensive.
I mean, you've even done voice coaching.
I have. I've done a lot of work, and I've read a lot of books. And
hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Yeah.
Easily.
I've been there. So I've done my homework. I've done my due diligence, and what I've learned is sometimes you just don't know. You get on a call and you hope that this person's going to be good, but that little gut feeling that I don't know if this is the right person. You should follow that gut feeling. Not that are they too expensive or can I afford them? That's a different gut feeling. You have to follow, do I connect well with this person? So the coaches that I've found that work amazing are the ones that no matter the cost, 10,000, 15,000, 20,000, I had a great gut feeling with that person and I made it work and I figured out how to pay for it. That's great. But the coaches that didn't work for me, the ones that I was like, that gut feeling, I don't know about this person. And I spent the money, even if it was less, and I didn't have great results. So you do have to follow your gut on that.
And I think it's important to realize what Sandy also said. A professional's expensive and amateur's a fortune. When you go after a coach, so we have those different levels, right? To get the foundation level, it's going to cost you around $10,000 a month. I'm just saying, it's $120,000 a year. If you want to go off and hire a kick-ass personal assistant that's keeping you on track, making sure you're hitting all your milestones, they're about $100,000 to $120,000 a year. They just are.
Mm-hmm.
A coach's job is saying, hey, I've done it, I get it, I'm going to give you all my wisdom and knowledge. That's the foundation coach. Someone like me, I'm about 15 to 25,000. Now, what I do is this, I just don't coach you, I start giving you contacts and relationships
Mm-hmm.
to add value to your business. So I literally turn into your CFO or your CEO to bring in new forms of revenue. So just one lead can literally be a multi-million-dollar connection.
Yeah.
So there's the difference, foundation and then propulsion to get to that outer space level. But we have to work in conjunction with you. And I think we hit our 1 hour.
Yeah.
All right. So next week, we don't know who we have on yet, but we always will find incredible people that add value to your life. So last question, are we good?
Yes.
All right. And Sandy, any last words?
Have an awesome week, and we will see you next time at the Unity Mentor Call.
Oh, yeah. Bye, everyone. Thanks a lot.